Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm Dr. Fabiana Claure. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how you can recover from failure, how to not let your past mistakes or disappointments carry into your future decisions, and how to be able to think with a clean slate and not feel that you have to prevent or stop yourself from stepping into your fullest potential. Let's dive in. Today, we're talking about how to recover from setbacks, how to make better decisions and not let any disappointments or frustrations that you've had in the past inform your future decisions. One of the things that I see musicians struggle with a lot, especially in this day and age, as there's so much information available with the online era we live in, is that musicians and the creatives that I work with are constantly trying new things. It's a good thing to be wanting to learn new things. But it's also important to be aware that if some of those things you learn don't work out, it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying, because there's so many opportunities of improving your life and there's so many options to access information and to buy different types of mentorship programs and to buy courses and programs and be involved in many different learning environments, both free and paid. We can start telling ourselves a story of how we learn and how we act based on knowledge. I'm here to tell you that if everything you're going to decide is based on what you have done in the past, meaning if you're wanting to start something new, but the feeling that your past attempt failed is dragging you into not wanting to start something new, what you're doing is inadvertently dragging past disappointments and past mistakes and expecting them to repeat into the future. When we go through this process of just trying things, there's two good things about this. Actually, there's one good thing and one bad thing. When you're trying things and you're learning information, and as long as you implement that information, but the good news is that at least you're taking the steps. You're taking action. And when you take action, you're bound to make mistakes. Mistakes are nothing other than just information. And so if you're able to say, okay, I'm going to take action on this thing and it may or may not work out, but no matter what, I'm going to learn from it and move into the next stage. That's the best way of approaching any action-making process and being ready for it potentially not to work out exactly the way you want it to. But if instead, every time something doesn't work out or you seemingly fail, quote unquote, which I don't really believe we ever fail, we're testing things out, right? And if it works, great. If it doesn't, it's information. It's just data, right? It doesn't have to be failure. I think failure has a negative connotation to it and somehow can feel like it's defining a future situation for us. If instead of thinking that things that didn't work out in the past are bound to not work out in the future again, and instead you're able to say, okay, why did this thing didn't work out for me in the past? What were the external circumstances that led to that thing not working out? Maybe you tried something and you didn't feel you had the right information, or you were not approaching it with the right strategy. Maybe you didn't have the right environment around you, the right support. Maybe you had people that were instilling doubt in your plans and were influencing your conviction and negatively impacting your faith and your belief. Whatever external circumstances happened that didn't allow you to succeed, there were also some internal circumstances that you were controlling that were contributing towards that negative outcome. Perhaps you did not show up in the way you were supposed to or you needed to. Perhaps you got yourself into a mode of analysis paralysis. You were just thinking all the time instead of doing. Perhaps you were second guessing yourself and always trying to find 10 ways to do it instead of just taking the step. And yeah, if it failed, then you're just making it up and continuing to move into the next step. Maybe you felt you were not enough. Maybe you felt that you didn't deserve that success or that process, or maybe you were afraid of what that would look like, not only if it failed, but also if it succeeded. Whatever internal struggles you dealt with that prevented you from reaching that goal, this is the moment to be able to acknowledge those and to be able to say, why did that thing I tried to do not work? And not only blame it on either two, right? You don't want to put all the guilt on yourself, all the blame on yourself and thinking like, oh, I don't follow through. I don't have the conviction. I don't have the discipline, whatever stories you may be telling yourself about your lack of. You don't want to be too hard on yourself. And on the other hand, you don't want to be too hard on your external environment and put all the blame on, hey, I didn't have the right strategy. I didn't know what I was doing, or I didn't have the right guidance. The mentorship I was working under was not adequate, or I didn't have the right support system. The people I was surrounding myself were not the right ones. Finding a way to strategically look at the two sides of this, the internal side and the external side, and being able to come with a conclusion and say, okay, here's why this thing didn't work. Perhaps I didn't show up. Perhaps I didn't ask enough questions. Perhaps I didn't implement the strategies that were being given to me, or perhaps I wasn't given the right strategies, etc., or a combination of the two. And then being able to analytically say, okay, what did I learn from this? And in the next time that I try, here's what I'm going to do differently. You see, most of the musicians that I speak to that are struggling with this, instead of learning from what didn't work out, they choose to not keep trying. They choose to stop. They choose to just do something completely different and not try again, and not say, okay, here's how I'm going to do it again. I'm going to reattempt this process, this project, whatever it is you're doing. And these are the lessons that I learned from the last attempt. And here's how I'm going to do things differently. I may surround myself by a different strategy. I may have better information. I may find a different network around me. I may surround myself by different people. I may look for the right environment that was missing in the previous time. Or here's how I'm going to show up differently this time around. I'm going to do the things that I'm being asked to do, or implement the exercises, or step out of my comfort zone. If I wasn't able to do that in the past, this time I am, and here's how. And here are the mechanisms that I'm going to use to keep myself accountable. Maybe you were missing accountability. Maybe you didn't have enough follow through. Whatever it is that internally stopped you from succeeding in that last thing you tried, now you know you can make sure that you not only create the awareness of it, but you also create the support system around it. Meaning, you know that if you have a tendency to procrastinate, for example, or to delay the decisions, to delay your thought process, that you're actually going to be able to say, okay, when I do this thing again, if I find myself wanting to delay it, to postpone it, to procrastinate on it, here's how I'm going to tackle it. Now you have information. Now you can actually say, here's what I'm going to do to make sure I show up, to make sure I implement. I'm going to prepare the right environment. I'm going to make sure I have the right strategy. I'm going to have these accountability measures. Now you're going into a new attempt with ammunition. Now you've got resources to support that attempt and to guarantee it, or not guarantee, but to ensure that it has a higher likelihood of success. Now, why is this important? When we have disappointing experiences, when we feel like we've fallen short of our expectations, when we feel that we've failed, quote unquote, it's really easy to get ourselves into a level of disbelief in our own potential. Even if you see other people do the thing that you're wanting to do, and you're even surrounded by other people doing the thing, sometimes it's hard to recognize that you can do this yourself too. And you can get yourself in a place of doubt, not in the process, not in the system, but in yourself. I want you to, make sure that you are not only highlighting and looking at those external factors and internal factors, but that you always remember that you have a way of having a rebirth in every new attempt. Every new opportunity that you set out to create for yourself, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your health, every time you say, here I go again, I want you to say, here I become a new version of myself again. Here I get to reinvent myself again. I get to learn and become a new version of myself in the process of trying this new thing. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful opportunity to start something new, knowing that you get to be a new version of yourself each and every time. If you can adopt that mindset habit of learning not only to try new things and to start new things, even if you failed in the past, but to know that how you show up and who you get to become in that process will impact that ultimate outcome. And you're taking full ownership, not only for the external circumstances that will help you succeed, but also for the internal version of yourself that will get you there. I guarantee you, you will feel so much more conviction and faith and confidence, and that confidence will become magnetizing to those around you. That confidence will inspire those who are seeing you do the thing to say, wow, here she goes again. Here he goes again. This is incredible. I thought he wasn't going to try again, but here they're going. You know what I mean? And so thinking about those mindset hacks, can you look at the external factors? Can you look at the internal factors? Can you say the worst thing that I could do is to stop trying and actually encourage yourself not only to try again, but to try it again in a better way, and taking full ownership of not only what you need to get there, but who do you need to become to get there? Those are the questions that you want to ask yourself. And by all means, I know it's hard sometimes. I know it feels challenging. Sometimes it's easy to just give up. I know. There have been many times where I've gone through challenges and I've seen things kind of get stuck in the way, and sometimes the finances when you're running a business can feel like up and down, and you have this unpredictability. You don't know what's going to happen. And even since my first time running my business, my first business that I launched, my music academy, I remember I was being interviewed by PBS and they asked me, what do you know now as a new entrepreneur? And I remember having this feeling of just uncertainty of the future and in a way, getting used to that feeling and learning to live with that and being able to say, it's this uneasy feeling that somehow is starting to feel more familiar each time of not knowing exactly how things are going to pan out, but somehow trusting that it will work out one way or another. And yet knowing that when it does work out, that it's not going to stay that way either. It doesn't mean it's going to stay always succeeding. It also may change in an instant. That feeling of volatility, unpredictability, I think it's important to embrace that as an entrepreneur, as a creative, and to know that the more flexible you become in this process, the more adaptable you are to the ups and downs, to the setbacks. And many of those setbacks can lead to your setups. And being okay with that and not taking yourself too seriously, keeping a sense of humor, keeping a positive attitude, and being able to say, okay, this failed, let me try it again better. Versus this failed, I'm not trying that again because it failed before. Chances are it'll fail again. That is the absolute worst way of making decisions. And unfortunately, I speak with way too many musicians every single week who are basically cutting their own wings in life and preventing themselves from flying simply because their first flight attempt, they fell. And they're like, no, I'm just going to cut my wings and I'm not going to fly again. And that's why I'm doing this episode, because I speak with way too many musicians who are just simply cutting their wings and afraid to fly again simply because they stumbled upon the first flight or the second flight or the third flight. It does not matter how many times you try. Never stop trying. Keep going. Find ways to learn from what you did, from what didn't work. And by all means, do not give up. There are people right now that need what you have to offer. There are people that are right now stuck, that their lives are being severely impacted because you are not yet fully stepping into your fullest version of yourself. You're not claiming your authority. You're not standing out in your light. You're not shining your expertise, your knowledge, your gifts into the world because you are too afraid of failing again, of getting stuck, of feeling disappointed, of losing whatever it is that you lost in the past. So do not let those past mistakes influence and inform your future decisions, because not only will you be cutting your wings and avoiding and not letting yourself fly, but you're going to be not letting your clients fly. You're not going to let them prosper and then grow and then benefit their lives and impact their whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's musical development, anything else. For your sake and for your potential client's sake, do not stop. Keep going. Promise me? Okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Let's prosper together.